Previously on the all-new adventures of the Doctor Who Book Club podcast.
Right, and so Matt, I think this brings us to the stage proceedings where you let the listener and me know what we're going to be reading.
So yeah, we are kicking off a brand new Doctor cycle. And we ended our last Doctor cycle with an 8th Doctor pick.
Yes.
And I'd hate for Paul McGann to feel neglected, like his Doctor was some sort of an afterthought.
Yes.
So we're staying with the 8th Doctor to kick off our new Doctor cycle.
Cool.
And while I'm very familiar with the 8th Doctor as he's been depicted in audios and novels,
Yes.
one medium I haven't really experienced him in is comics. So that's where we're headed. So for December, we'll be reading the first of 4 collected volumes of Doctor Who magazine comic strips featuring the 8th Doctor, which is called Endgame.
Yes, okay.
Which was first published as a collected edition back in October of 2005, which features, appropriately enough, 8 comic stories and a short story exclusive to this collection.
Cool.
So we will be reading that for December.
Excellent. Oh, cool. That's cool.
And I have no idea if there's any holiday-themed content in there. I'd be surprised if there was, but it feels good to start with the 8th Doctor.
Yeah.
And now our story continues.
Welcome, everyone, to the all-new adventures of the Doctor Who Book Club podcast. This is Matt in Minnesota.
Chris in South London. How's it going, Matt?
Well, it's quite chilly this morning, but apart from that, Console Room has roped me into being head of programming, so I've been very busy with that as we're going into the convention at the end of next month. How are things going with you?
It's getting very wintry. Yesterday, I was driving at 11 o'clock in the morning in a very, very thick fog. Philip Hinchcliffe-esque fog.
Did you see Susan wandering about, perhaps?
No, I didn't.
You know, she loves a good fog.
She does. She does love a good fog. Yes.
So we have a little bit of book news to share, some exciting stuff. There's a little update with the Penguin Classics crossover line. Doctor Who Frankenstein is now retitled Frankenstein and the Patchwork Man.
Ooh.
And
Okay.
also recently revealed, coming August 28th of 2025, we have Doctor Who Dracula by Paul Mars. So that should be exciting, and wonder if it'll tie into like The Great Vampires or something.
Very cool, very cool.
And there's a new listing for an anthology, tentatively due out on September 18th of next year, called 1001 Nights in Time and Space, Folk Tales Rescued from Around the Universe.
Okay.
And it lists both Steve Cole and Paul Mars as contributors, and appears to be like a 300-page hardcover.
Cool.
So getting into a little bit of territory that I thought Dan Slott covered with Martha in the...
Yes, a little bit. And also, isn't there a Big Finish a bit like that as well?
Probably. It's probably
Yes.
a big finish for
there
every
is.
occasion.
Yes.
And then finally, it looks like we're going to be getting a second wave of 3 books following Ncuti Gatwa's second season next year.
Ooh.
So these are due for publication on May 29th. And only 2 of the books have been revealed so far.
Right.
One is called Fear Death by Water,
Okay.
which is by Emily Cook.
Yeah.
And then Spectral Scream by Hannah Ferguson.
I know of Emily Cook. I don't think I recognise the name Hannah Ferguson. Emily Cook, obviously long-term Doctor Who magazine contributor.
And also Escape Room showrunner for
Oh,
those
yes, of
special
course.
features. Yeah.
Yes.
So I think that brings us to show and tell.
And it's probably me to go first, isn't it?
That is, yep.
So I was listening not that long ago to I've been working my way through the McGann Big Finish stuff. And so I decided to skip ahead a little bit to The Company of Friends, which is an audio featuring the Eighth Doctor and 4 of his companions in separate little stories. So Benny, Fitz, who we know well from the books, and Mary.
Speaking of Frankenstein.
Speaking of Frankenstein, Mary Shelley, and Izzy, who is going to be featuring in this month's book.
Which, by the way, is Doctor Who Endgame.
Yes.
Which is the 8th Doctor graphic novel collection, not to be confused with, I think there's an Endgame. Is it a Past Doctor or 8th Doctor?
I think Past Doctor, yeah. But yeah, so this is Izzy's only audio appearance. It's also Fitz's only audio appearance as well, I think, or he's certainly the first appearances of them. And also as well, the first audio meeting between the 8th Doctor and Benny. They'd obviously previously encountered each other in the book The Dying Days.
Encounter's doing a lot of lifting there.
Yes. Yeah. It's a bit of a mixed bag, I would say. I really enjoyed Benny's story, which was written by Lance Parkin. Fitz's story is fun. So Fitz is a bit more Cockney in that than I was kind of expecting, but I still enjoyed him very much. I enjoyed Jonathan Morris's Mary's story. Izzy's story was a bit of a disappointment. I have to say, Izzy felt like she was being written really, really young. So I don't know if it was a question of performance or a question of writing or a combination. It just didn't work for me, minus spoilers, but it's very comic booky. Izzy is wanting to find a rare back issue, and that back issue then is quite important for an alien invasion. Yeah. So have you heard that audio?
I have not heard that one yet.
No,
it's sitting in my pile of purchased Big Finish audios that I have not gotten around to.
Yeah.
I did have a chance to listen to their Sirens of Time Redux over the past month, and
okay.
That was quite fun. And
yes,
I was doing some comparisons back and forth between the two, but
okay, cool.
Haven't heard this one yet.
No. But yeah, the Benny and Fitz ones are very good. The Mary Shelley one is clearly setting her up as a companion, and she was a companion for a little while. Unfortunately, I wasn't the biggest fan of the Izzy story, and I would say Izzy is written really, really quite straight in it. One of Izzy's defining characteristics is that she is not. I think so. Yeah, it was up, but it's written by Alan Barnes, who co-created Izzy.
Yeah, I almost sought that out to do as a show and tell, and I just ran out of time.
Yeah.
Didn't get a chance to listen to it, so I'm really glad that you did.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, though some people, I looked at reviews, some folks found it fun. I just found it really annoying. Also, to be fair, I was listening to it whilst I was driving to work on November the 6th. So I think my mood for frothy fun was somewhat limited.
Slightly dampened there. Yeah.
So
I feel your pain.
Yes, yeah. That episode started just as I'd seen a text from my mum appear on my dashboard. I was like, oh, yeah. So possibly I wasn't listening to it in the best of moods. But anyway. Right. How about you?
Well, we've talked about it on the show a couple of times, and it has finally arrived, so I'm going to talk about the Hoodle book.
Oh, cool.
Which is a whodunit adventure through time and space by Tim Didopoulos, Roland Hall, and Dave Knowles. And it's quite a substantial book. I would say that there's, it's close to 300 pages or so, and has a total of, let me flip to the table of contents here, over 60 different puzzles. You're right, Chris. It's very much like Myrtle and not like some of the other books I was hoping for. But what is nice is that all 15 doctors are represented in it.
Oh, cool.
And it goes all the way up through The Legend of Ruby Sunday and Empire of Death.
Okay, cool.
And for the 8th Doctor, they even have a couple of 8th Doctor adventures that they've turned into Hoodle puzzles. So you get the TV movie, but then they picked the 8 Doctors,
right.
So you get to experience that again.
Yay.
And then also Placebo Effect.
Oh, okay.
So I'm not sure why they went with those, but...
well, I think Gary Russell wrote Placebo Effect, didn't he? Or was it Chris Buelas? I think it might have been Gary Russell.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. In which case, I guess it might have been moderately easy for them to get the rights.
But yeah, it's fully illustrated throughout, which is cool, and the illustrations are really nice. And I've played a couple of the puzzles, but yeah, I'm still holding out hope for a series of Doctor Who books based on the Usborne puzzle adventures. I think that would be really successful, and I know some folks in different positions listen to this show. So, yeah, if you need like a series pitch or something,
yes, yeah.
We could employ an illustrator or two. It would be a fun little series of adventures.
We could put together a business case for you. Yeah.
But yeah, Hoodle is fun, especially if you like the Myrtle-style logic puzzles.
Yeah, fair enough. Cool. That might be in Doctor Who fans' stockings this Christmas.
Suitable for regifting. So, as we mentioned this month, we're reading Endgame, which is a collection of 8th Doctor comic strips. And I didn't realize when I picked it, Chris, how pricey this volume had gotten.
Yes.
So apologies to listeners. Look for it through old Doctor Who magazine issues or...
Which is how I did, yes. Yes. Though, annoyingly, both of the collections I have access to did not have the first part of Endgame.
Oh,
had the rest of everything, so but not the first part of Endgame. So I've got duplicates of quite a few, but yeah. But anyway, I remembered what I read Endgame Part 1 back in the day. So yeah.
And just a quick note on story placement, as there's a few different competing theories out there.
Yes, there are.
Some people put the entire run of 8th Doctor strips from DWM in the gap between the 8 Doctors and Vampire Science, which is a possibility.
Yeah.
They could also fit in after the other adventures, so like the EDAs or the Big Finish audios, because I think those have sections where the Doctor's traveling alone.
Yeah.
And then the Audios Agreus, of course, suggests that it doesn't really matter because they're parallel timelines anyway. So you have your choice of, a menu of different places to slot this one in. This collection opens with a short story that's exclusive to the collection, which is called Threshold by Scott Gray. And it sort of functions as a recap to what happened back in Ground Zero.
Yes.
And it's also accompanied by illustrations from Ground Zero. And this is the section that our dramatic reading is taken from. So this is from that short story. And our reader this month is longtime friend of the show, Bill Evenson, who is the author of the Doctor Who-related comedy book, Look at the Size of That Thing, which is still available for purchase.
Yeah.
And he's also co-host of the Frankenstein Minute podcast. And you can also catch Bill in the back catalog for Reality Bomb, having contributed to several skits for that show.
Cool.
So let's have a listen.
Yeah, let's.
Ace is the Doctor's only defense against the 2 remaining Lowbry. She fights with passion and skill, but is overcome. With no other option left to her, Ace ignites an explosive and kills another of the Lowbry, but she is also caught in the blast.
Wrong, chum. I know exactly where I am.
No!
I'm at Ground Zero, and so are you!
The final Lowbry escapes to Earth as the Doctor staggers to the fallen Ace. He cradles her gently in his arms. They have seen so much together, overcome so many trials and heartbreaks. Ace whispers a goodbye.
Is there a doctor? Handy? Like you said, gotta work on those timers.
Don't talk. Let me look at you. I think...
It's getting cold, Professor.
Time of year. We'll go somewhere warmer next time.
Professor, we did good, didn't we?
Yes, Ace. We did good.
The Doctor feels the life leave her body. The TARDIS, badly wounded by its journey, manages to return to Notting Hill. The Doctor coldly watches the Lowbry causing havoc among the carnival goers. He confronts the monstrous entity and uses the TARDIS to destroy it, materializing his ship inside the creature's body. The threat is over. Morning follows the long night. The Doctor finds Isaac on a rooftop. The Time Lord knows that for some reason the Threshold betrayed the Lowbry, using him as their weapon. He promises a reckoning, but Isaac laughs at the thought. The threshold are everywhere, untouchable and inviolate. He fades into the air. The doctor returns Sarah, Perry, and Susan to their own times and travels on alone. Slowly, painfully, the TARDIS heals itself. The doctor's time ship becomes dark and empty as if to reflect his solitude. But before the doctor can uncover the threshold's secrets, he finds himself in the city of San Francisco battling with an ancient enemy. The doctor is forced to give up one of his precious lives in order to survive. He changes his outer form and then journeys on with a new face and a new outlook. He casts aside his former manipulative nature. From now on, he will be neither player nor pawn. And perhaps because of this change, the doctor grieves a little less for his lost friend. Perhaps her face begins to fade slightly from his memory, but no Time Lord ever truly forgets his history.
Thank you so much, Bill, for reading that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And again, folks, please do check out his Frankenstein Minute podcast.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that is quite an interesting opener. It's very much a previously on.
Yes, it is, isn't it?
But it also kind of goes through the Doctor's regeneration from the perspective of the comic strip continuity.
Yeah.
And also ties into perhaps some villains that might be popping up.
Yes, possibly so.
In this series.
Yes.
So
yes.
I think that brings us to our first section of the collection.
Mm.
So this is Endgame.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, Chris, this is written by Alan Barnes.
Yeah.
And pencils are by Martin Geraghty.
Yeah.
And Robin Smith and Robin Riggs do the ink work.
Yeah.
And of course, lettering by Alita Fell.
Yes. Yeah. And Martin Geraghty does the artwork for most of this, apart from Sean Longcroft does a little bit of another one of the stories. But yeah. Cool. Right.
And this goes back to, I think, issues 244 through 247.
Yes, indeed. So the TARDIS materialises in what appears to be the town of Stockbridge. Now, Stockbridge was a town that the Fifth Doctor would visit on a few occasions. Stars fell on Stockbridge, for example. So that was in the comics. He's also visited it in audio as well. Mm. And there, the Doctor finds that the people have been replaced by living dolls, with the exception of two people. The Doctor's old friend, Maxwell Edison, who has also made audio appearances, and Max's friend and fellow paranormal investigator, a young sci-fi fan called Izzy.
And we don't get Izzy's last name yet. She's just referred to as Izzy S, but it's eventually, I think, revealed down the line as Sinclair.
Yes, at some point she refers to it as Izzy someone. Yes. So Max and Izzy have stolen an object called the Focus, which is sought by a Knight Templar called Marwood.
Which I think is a reference to
Withnail and I.
Yeah, yep.
It is. It is very much a reference to Withnail and I. Marwood is the name of Paul McGann's character, I think, in that. As Max and Izzy and the Doctor escape Marwood's foxhound kind of man-huntery type things, they are confronted by an old foe of the Doctor, the Celestial Toymaker, no less, who has replaced the real Stockbridge with a toy version. The Toymaker and Marwood capture Max, but the Doctor and Izzy escape into the TARDIS and flee to the real Stockbridge, which the Toymaker is holding in a macro-dimensional pocket, which reminded me a little bit of DC Comics in the kind of like late 80s post-crisis continuity of where kind of like Superboy lived.
Mm. It's funny you mentioned that because it reminded me of the Glass City bottle of Candor? Because he's kind of holding it like in a snow globe.
He is a bit. So in the real Stockbridge, in this macro-dimensional pocket, Izzy finds her parents frozen in time along the rest of the village. But admits to the Doctor that she was adopted and doesn't know who her real parents are. So there's a lot of stuff going on there.
There was quite a chilling little attack at this point, I think, by the butcher, the baker, and the candlestick maker.
Yes. And I remember being utterly surprised at the Toymaker being back, because I had no idea.
I would have been surprised, but I accidentally flipped to that page.
Yes, yeah. He's on the cover.
That's true.
of at least one version of it.
He does have a kind of a really cool full-page spread reveal
Yes.
of him.
Yeah.
And it is such a kind of a cool series of reveals because you have first Stockbridge, then Max Edison showing up, then Izzy's introduction, like she appears like bursting through a pane glass window, firing ray guns, saving the Doctor. And then you get the full page reveal of the toy maker. So yeah, kind of just a really cool opening.
Yes.
And then from there, Izzy and the Doctor must return to the toy version of Stockbridge in order to save Max, knowing that the toy maker will destroy the real village unless they play his game.
Yeah.
And there's like a Lego castle up in the clouds where they're captured by Marwood and handed over to the toy maker.
Yeah.
And the toy maker forces the Doctor to play a game of hangman with Izzy as the victim, which in itself was also chilling.
Yeah.
But rather than risk losing, the Doctor hands over the Focus, which is this kind of emblem thing that they've been looking for.
Yeah.
And the Focus is a vital component of a mirror engine called the Imaginarium, or Imagineum, I guess.
Yeah, Imagineum.
I threw in an extra syllable, I guess.
Yeah, whichever.
Which was constructed by a race of alchemists, and it was acquired by the Templars when an alien spaceship crashed on Earth some time ago, and was won by the Toymaker in a game with Marwood.
Yeah.
And the Imaginarium can transform light into solid matter, and the Toymaker uses it to create a toy doctor that attacks the real one.
Yeah.
And I had to kind of question, like, does the Toymaker really need this device? Can he already create solid matter anyway? But maybe not. I don't know how that works.
But also, the Toymaker he's appearing on Earth, isn't he?
Mm.
So maybe he has limited powers once he enters a real world or something. I don't know. Anyway.
It makes me wonder if what was the missing Sixth Doctor story, if they're maybe taking that as canon, and that explains why he's showing up on Earth. The Nightmare Fair?
The Nightmare Fair. It could do. The dialogue seems to suggest that it's the first time that the Eighth Doctor has encountered him since.
Yeah, and don't try bothering to reconcile this appearance with the giggle, because the numbering and rematches of their games doesn't quite work. I tried reasoning through that.
No. So, Izzy and Max are released into a giant game of Mousetrap, where they're pursued by Marwood's foxhounds. And this is quite spectacular imagery. Very much reminded me of the kind of imagery that you would get in the Sixth Doctor comic strip era. Especially stories like Voyager.
Can you remind me who did the artwork for Tides of Time? It wasn't Martin Garrett.
It wasn't Martin Garrett. No, it was not. No, it was Steve
Parkhouse.
Parkhouse, yeah.
Okay, because I do want to say that Martin did do a great job of kind of matching the artwork for like the Stockbridge sections.
Yes, yeah. He's clearly a fan or has studied very carefully archives of Doctor Who magazine. But yeah, so Izzy lures the hounds under a 100-ton weight, whilst Marwood is protesting angrily about all of this. And so the bored toy maker crushes a doll that looks like Marwood, which thus kills the real one in some kind of strange way. And the toy doctor witnesses this and accepts the real doctor's argument that the toy maker will similarly dispose of him once he's got bored or had enough. So the toy doctor decides to attack the toy maker, which keeps the toy maker distracted, whilst the real doctor uses the Imaginarium to create a toy maker. So you now have two toy makers becoming locked in a perpetual stalemate, and the toy doctor destroys the Imaginarium to ensure that they'll be trapped forever, or at least for a wee while.
For a while, yeah.
Yes. And the Doctor, Izzy and Max flee back to the TARDIS, which the Doctor uses to free the real Stockbridge from the toy maker's dimensional pocket. And the Doctor then leaves. He invites Max to join him, but Max turns him down, though Izzy joins him as his new companion.
And I was kind of hoping that Max would stick around for a story or two, but was excited with, Izzy too.
Yeah, I mean, Max is kind of fun, but he's also, I don't know, he's not the most uplifting of characters. I've always assumed that Izzy is based on the lead singer of Sleeper. She has a similar kind of hair, because Izzy has like a dyed streak or free of hair right at the front. And also as well, one of the reasons why I've always been slightly fond of Izzy is that I think that she's supposed to be pretty much the same age as me. She is a teenager in 1996.
Yeah.
So that's kind of fun.
Louise Wenner?
Wenner, yes. Yeah,
from Sleeper.
Yeah.
Funny you should mention that because the commentary does call that out.
Oh, does it? Oh, okay.
As her being inspired by that.
Yes.
But then in a later story, once we get to the story Tooth and Claw,
yes,
that likeness was changed from Louise to Louisa Bradshaw White, who played Kira in this life.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So if you notice, like, her facial features change a little bit, they consciously made that decision in Tooth and Claw.
I must say I hadn't noticed, so I'm going to go and I'm just going to remind myself.
And in the story Endgame, a couple of little additional things, too. I'm pretty sure there's a cameo from Sam Raimi's Army of Darkness and the Book of the Dead when Izzy is going through the TARDIS library and she pulls out a volume of a book and the doctor says the book is alive and is from the Osirans. So I think that's a visual call out to that. And then it was cool seeing St. Justinian's again and kind of the parapet where Sir Justin sacrificed himself. There was also a reference to Casino Royale when they were going through different types of games to play. And I think the toy maker mentioned that he played Baccarat with Le Chiffre. What'd you make of this first story?
Yeah, it's great fun. I admired the bravery and pizzazz of calling the first story of a new Doctor's run, the first new Doctor in many a year, Endgame. I was sitting up and paying attention to the comic strip at this point. How they'd regenerated the Seventh Doctor's final story had also made me sit up and pay attention. But I was like, oh, okay, right, we are carrying on in a hitting the ground, running and just doing crazy stuff, and there is more crazy stuff yet to come.
And the Doctor, you can tell, is still affected by Ace's death as well.
Yes.
So it's very much establishing the comics having their own continuity.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I thought it was like an enjoyable start. Lots to tie in with past settings and enemies.
Yeah.
Fairly brisk pace as well.
Yeah.
The commentary for this one points out that the Stockbridge storyline and the Toymaker stories were originally going to be separate adventures, but they were combined, and the magazine editors weren't sure at first that they'd be permitted to use Paul McGann's likeness. So there was a version of the story that exists where it's still the Seventh Doctor.
Interesting.
And the pairing of Izzy and Max was inspired a bit by the X-Files, although neither seems to have taken on kind of the skeptic role of Scully.
Yeah.
And then also visually, the shot of the Toymaker revealing Stockbridges in a snow globe and then like looming gigantically over the Doctor, that very much felt like a similar shot in The Giggle.
Yes.
And also in the animation, the recent CGI animation of the first Doctor story. So those may have potentially taken inspiration from how the Toymaker is depicted here.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of this volume that I can see echoes of in the modern era.
Oh, yeah. We'll get to those, too. And then Izzy does mention that she's an orphan and doesn't know her real parents. And,
yes.
And wonder how much she was going to be like Ruby.
Yeah.
Or vice versa, I suppose. Because, that whole storyline in Shooty's first season didn't grab me as much as I think it may have for others.
Yeah.
Fortunately, her parentage isn't something that's explored in the rest of the stories in this volume. So
yeah.
Put a pin in that, I guess.
Yeah.
All right, so that brings us to the second story of the collection, which is The Keep.
Yeah.
Which is a two-parter that was in issues 248 and 249, again with Alan Barnes and Martin Geraghty, and inks by Robin Smith.
Yeah.
And this one is an SOS signal summons the Doctor and Izzy to 51st century Earth, which has been abandoned by the rich and powerful as the sun begins its kind of solar flare period, which we see in the Ark in Space and Sontaran Experiment, and I guess Beast Below, too.
And the end of the world? No, possibly?
That's like 4 billion years in the future.
Okay.
This is kind of the temporary exodus.
Yeah.
And those left had fractured into millions of warring nation states, either through battles in the ether or conducted via transmat.
Yeah.
So also this is post Seeds of Death.
Yes.
And only one place on Earth is safe from these wars, which is the Transmat Shielded Keep, which is the source of the SOS. And inside, the Doctor and Izzy find a prototype plasma sun, like an artificial sun called the Cauldron, which is created by a scientist named Crivello. And Crivello's robot servant Marquez unexpectedly throws the Doctor into the cauldron, but the Doctor emerges unscathed, having forged a psychic link with the living sun. Crivello had aged 60 years and 6 seconds when he tried to communicate with it previously, and thus his android assistant summoned a time traveler who could survive the communion with the cauldron and tell it what to do next. And the Doctor instructs the cauldron to launch itself into space, which provides humanity with a new home to head to out in the Crab Nebula, where they can await their eventual return to Earth. And as Izzy and the Doctor depart, Marquez snaps the scientist Crivello's neck and awaits the fulfillment of his true agenda. So it ends on a bit of a cliffhanger, I guess.
Yes, yeah. So it makes you feel that we may go back to this at some point. But yeah. I mean, I remember reading this at the time and thinking it was fun in a bit of a Mad Max kind of way, or Judge Dredd. Maybe Judge Dredd a bit more so. I was, though, also, I think, a little bit thrown by it just being a two-parter. And I thought, oh, I thought we might have more. That's how I remembered at the time as, back in the 90s.
Yeah, for me, the ending was a little abrupt, but it did feel more like a prologue for what's to come.
Yes.
And the commentary for this two-parter reveals that it was originally going to be part of Fire and Brimstone.
Yeah.
But it was felt there was too much exposition for that story.
Yeah.
So they moved it kind of in a Mission to the Unknown or Dalek's Master Plan way.
Yes.
Or I guess kind of how The Stars Fell on Stockbridge previewed the Stockbridge Horror.
Yes.
As more like a prologue.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting era to explore. Like, what happens to all the people left on Earth before the impending solar flares kill everyone off, and after there's this mass exodus of all these arc ships and stuff.
Yeah.
And it would be a cool era for the show to revisit properly, I feel, too.
Yeah.
We also get a reference to Magnus Greel from Talons of Wang Chiang.
Yes, we do.
And then I turn the page and there's a reference to Dog Bolter.
Yes.
These first few stories do feel very self-referential, I guess.
Yeah.
They're forging their own continuity with the comics, and quite a bit of nods to the past in these.
Yeah, there's also as well a homunculus, which is obviously something that Magnus Greel was no stranger to.
And then we jump around a little bit.
Yes, we do.
Because the next story chronologically in the publication order is A Life of Matter and Death.
Yes.
But we're going to skip over that one for the moment.
Yeah.
Going kind of in the order that these are laid out in the story.
Yes, rather than the order of publication. Yeah.
And so we jump right into Fire and Brimstone.
Yeah, we find ourselves on Icarus Falling, which is a wonderfully named satelloid in orbit around Crivello's cauldron. So the cauldron that Crivello launched in the Keep. And we encounter a communications seer who has the amazing name of Ptolemy Mutton Chops. And Mutton Chops sees a vision of Armageddon in his kind of like seeing pool. However, the satelloid's paragon, a person called Sister Chastity, advises him to keep this vision to himself for fear of accidentally fulfilling it. So the TARDIS then materializes on the satelloid, and the Doctor and Izzy are brought before its leaderine to explain their presence. And the Doctor fears that his arrival on the cauldron that he'd launched into space a couple of centuries ago is no coincidence. And his fears are confirmed when Icarus Falling is attacked by the Daleks.
And this did surprise me quite a bit.
Yeah, I remember being utterly shocked when I read this the first time. In fact, I'd forgotten they were in it. And the Argonauts are trying to hold off the invading Daleks. And the Doctor takes a sample from Mutton Chops' augury pool, his seeing pool, realising that it's part of the cauldron, which begs the question of how Mutton Chops was able to survive communion with it, because only the Doctor could, or someone who was really time sensitive. The Daleks then launch what they call a contagium, which is a nanite-producing weapon, because it's the late 90s, so we've got nanites, and they launch it into the satelloid. So anyone infected by the nanites falls under Dalek control at once, and only Izzy, Chastity, and Mutton Chops escape.
And on the bit about the folks falling under Dalek control, it was revisited with those types of nanites in like Asylum of the Daleks.
Yes.
When you have like the eye stalks emerge. And also, it was kind of cool in the lettering that once someone was taken over by a Dalek, then the font for their speech bubbles changed into that Dalek type font.
Yes. Yeah, it's all good fun. The Doctor gives Izzy his coat, which contains a sample from the augury pool. And then the Doctor confronts the Daleks alone, certain that they are responsible for his arrival. And the Daleks appear to exterminate him in another remarkable cliffhanger. But this is just a trick to fool certain parties on the satelloid who are working against the Daleks. This trick fails because Mutton Chops can sense through his link to the cauldron that the Doctor is still alive. So Mutton Chops 2 falls victim to the contagion, and Izzy and Chastity flee to the docking bay. But Izzy's wanting to try to fly a ship to the Dalek hive to rescue the Doctor. But Chastity stops her and reveals herself to be an agent of the Threshold, who were responsible for Ace's death.
Mm-hmm.
That was a cliffhanger and a half, I have to say.
Yeah. It really was. And this feels very familiar because you've got the Doctor visiting this orbiting space station, or in this case, it's almost like a Dyson sphere. Or like it's funny because the story opens with Izzy reading Discworld.
Yeah.
Which was very on point. But this whole thing about like the Doctor revisiting the station some 200 years later is just like, you know, the Ninth Doctor visiting Satellite 5 100 years later.
Yeah, it's almost like someone's playing a long game.
Yeah. and even to the point where when the Eighth Doctor gets exterminated, it's disguising a matter transmitter beam, which is exactly what was used on Satellite 5 when Rose got exterminated by the android.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's really cool to kind of see, like, oh, you know, maybe this, if not directly, you know, maybe subconsciously influenced RTD, because I'm sure he read these at the time.
Yeah.
So then the Doctor is reunited with Marquez, who's that android from the earlier story, who's now revealed to be a Dalek agent who posed as Crivello's servant in order to turn the experiment to the Daleks' ends. And some time ago, an army of Daleks from an alternate universe emerged through a freak spatial rift in the Magellan cluster. They were successfully exterminated, but the Daleks can't tolerate the thought of such creatures' existence, and intend to traverse the timelines and wipe out all alternative versions of themselves in parallel universes. The ship that was used to kind of punch through the universe also very much looked like the Ark ship that the Daleks used, the Void ship that was an army of ghosts. And so that was another callback, which was surprising, or call forward even.
Yeah.
So the Daleks, in order to like do this inner parallel genocide, must create their own spatial rift, which is where the cauldron comes in, since the Doctor has a psychic link with the living sun. And they can use the Doctor to initiate the cauldron's controlled collapse and create a spatial rift through which to navigate the timelines.
Yeah, it's Crisis on Infinite Daleks, isn't it? So the Daleks cut the connection out of the Doctor's brain, this psychic link, and leave him for dead. But Sister Chastity arrives and revives him. Yeah, she's the one who's an agent of the Threshold. And there is no love lost between the Doctor and the Threshold, because after all, they're directly responsible for Ace's death. But the Doctor reluctantly agrees to help them stop the Daleks. Chastity leads him to the map room, where he locates a data conduit, and if he can divert the information flow back through his own brain, he can prevent the collapse of the cauldron. Or so he thinks. However, Izzy, now held captive in the Threshold's base, has learned that the Threshold are working on behalf of other clients, and are using the Doctor to set a trap. When he completes the circuit, the cauldron will consume the Dalek hive and close again, trapping them forever, and also, as a little byproduct, killing the Doctor. So, yeah, things are not looking good.
Yeah. And the Doctor, who's suspicious of Sister Chastity's motives,
Fair enough.
yeah, reasonably so,
Yeah.
halts before activating the circuit, and then the Daleks arrive and destroy it, having found a more reliable plan. And Ptolemy Mutton Chops is in fact a symbiote of the Cauldron and is now under Dalek control due to the virus, or the nanites. And the Daleks use him to open the rift, but they've forgotten that it opens both ways. And suddenly armies of alternate Daleks emerge from the wormhole and start attacking the hive.
Yeah, and these include things like the spider Daleks from Philip Siegel's mooted Dalek-y things, because if the show had gone to series, they was going to include spider Daleks, and I think there's various other alternative Daleks, aren't there?
Yeah, like the Dark Dimension ones, and yep.
Yeah.
And in the ensuing chaos, Izzy uses the sample of the Cauldron plasma that the Doctor had taken from the seeing pool to distract the Threshold, and she manages to steal a Threshold teleportation ring.
Yeah.
And also the prize promised to the Threshold by their clients, which is in a mysterious box. And she uses the ring to return to the Doctor, who sees that the box containing the Threshold's reward is embossed with the seal of Rassilon.
Gets murkier and murkier, doesn't it?
And I questioned it that when I was reading that. I was like, that's a leap. Like, how does the Doctor know it's not from the Vogans as the clients?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But yeah. And as the hive begins to break apart, the Doctor drops this box through a hole in the floor. And as Chastity and Marquez fight over the box, the Doctor telepathically links with Mutton Chops, who frees himself from Dalek control and prepares for the artificial sun to go nova. And then Izzy loses her Threshold ring, but the TARDIS suddenly appears nearby, perhaps brought to the hive by the Daleks, or perhaps sent by other interested parties. And as the Doctor and Izzy flee, Chastity kills Marquez and opens the box, and the Cauldron goes nova, destroying the Daleks and the hive, and also closing the spatial rift. And the Doctor and Izzy are able to watch from a safe distance as the Cauldron returns to normal, ensuring that the humanity who's now colonized around this star will continue to survive. And yeah, the artificial sun was replaced with a natural sun, I guess, due to this nova. And Chastity reappears briefly to remind the Doctor that his last match with the Threshold is yet to be played out.
It's great stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
I know. Did you enjoy this?
I did, yeah.
Yeah,
And the Daleks very much did surprise me. And it is cool that Izzy, being a sci-fi fan, she's actually really excited by the Daleks. And she's like, finally, some robot monsters. So...
Yeah, because I think Izzy was inspired by a girl that Alan Barnes saw browsing through comics in a comic shop, like a teenage girl. And she's very self-aware, and she knows all the various sci-fi tropes, so she just comments on them. I just find her great fun to read.
A couple of other kind of interesting little tidbits from this one. There's a reference by the Doctor to recent trouble in the vortex, which we'll get to when we read the comic we skipped over.
Yes.
I was wondering if that line would have been removed from the collection or not, but it wasn't, given their reordering.
Yeah.
And there's also a reference to the Doctor being a sort of brother to Hippocrates, and I wonder if that is just a joke about the Doctor and, Hippocrates and the Hippocratic Oath, or if it's a reference to the whole Ulysses storyline.
I think it's that, or it could be both. Yeah.
Yeah, was that from like the John Leakey Bible?
Yes. Yeah.
And we didn't mention at the start, but this again was an Alan Barnes and Martin Geraghty co-production. And then it's interesting that the Daleks are depicted with their eyeballs being at the end of their eye stalks as opposed to it being a lens. Yeah. And I think both versions had been used in the comic before, but the art here really makes it a point of it being a Dalek eyeball, like at the end of the eye stalk, where it's like, in some cases, it's like straining or looking really gross. And it's also notable that we see a lot of Daleks using hover discs and not, floating around on their own like they do in the new series.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was cool with Sister Chastity being revealed as a Threshold agent.
Yeah.
but not entirely unexpected because I had a feeling they'd turn up due to the Threshold short story being included at the beginning.
Yeah, yeah. Whereas reading it through at the first time, I was really excited when the Daleks appeared, but then I was just like, well, what? And the Threshold? What?
And then it was also notable that the new solar system is called the New Earth system.
Yes.
So this is like their first. They've got like a dozen or so more New Earths to go before we get to Cassandra's time. But it's kind of cool to see that progression here, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a hoot, isn't it? Okay, so where does the volume go next? Because
So now we skip over by hook or by crook. We'll get to that in a bit.
Yeah.
This takes us to Tooth and Claw, which is again an Alan Barnes, Martin Geraghty item, and this one is a 4-parter.
Yes.
And it opens in the year 1939 as Europe is preparing for war, and 4 visitors arrive on an unnamed island in the South Pacific to sit out the violence in luxury as the guests of the eccentric Varney, which sort of reminds me of that Netflix Glass Onion, or like The Most Dangerous Game type, setup.
Yeah, it also reminded me of Alien Bodies.
Haven't read that, but
no, but and it was interesting because like Alien Bodies came out roughly about the same kind of time. Yeah.
And so some of the visitors, you've got an actress named Sabine Snitching. You've got a Canon Pincock, and then Templar Knight Marwood, who is the ancestor of the man the Doctor and Izzy met in Stockbridge.
Yeah.
And each provides their host with a unique gift. And the 4th person, her name is Faye Truscott Sade, who's an art detective and leader of the underground salon aesthetic. And she gives him the strangest gift of all, a whistle which summons the TARDIS. And this whistle, it reminded me of the Stattenheim remote control from the 2 Doctors.
Yeah.
And indeed, a few pages later, it's referred to in the text as a Stattenheim summoner. And maybe it's similar to the whistle that Ncuti Gatwa... Did you watch those deleted scenes? By the way?
I haven't. No, not yet. No.
There's like 10 minutes of them.
Okay, wow.
And there's very much a bootstrap paradox, whole section that was cut about how the Doctor gets that whistle. So it's worth checking out those deleted scenes. But the Doctor realizes something odd is going on because he's met Faye before, and he knows her to be an undercover British secret agent. And I had to look that up too because I was wondering, like, did they meet in a previous comic?
Yeah, I don't think we did.
Their first meeting has never been explored in comic or in audio or in novel form, so it could be a good story to tell sometime in the future for someone.
Yeah, could be. After dinner and champagne, that of which Izzy doesn't take part in because she's like 16, Varney tells his guests the story of his ancestor, who was a mad pirate, made a deal with the devil and fed on the blood of his enemies. And a chalice in the dark chapel is filled with the evil captain's blood, and it hasn't clotted in centuries. And it's said that whoever drinks the blood will be possessed by the spirit of this evil captain. And that night, the pilot of the plane that brought Varney's guests to the island is attacked and killed. And Izzy finds his body next to the empty chalice. Sabine and Marwood attempt to flee the island, but Varney has his monkey butlers blow up the seaplane because he doesn't want anyone to leave until the killer is caught. And the building has a generator powering it, and it fails. And as the Doctor and Sabine set off to fix the problem, Varney locks himself in his room, and Faye follows the fleeing Canon Pincock. Marwood, certain that Izzy is the killer, then tries to shoot her. This is just, it's great. It's up to 11, isn't it?
It's very much like a Clue sort of murder mystery type thing going on.
It is. But when you said Glass Onion, it feels very Glass Onion, doesn't it?
Also, like, the horror aspects of this one is very, like, Island of Dr. Moreau by H.G. Wells with the monkeys and everything, too.
Yeah.
And so the Doctor and Sabine find cave drawings telling of a demon that rose from the volcano and taught the monkeys how to eat people. And they're then attacked by a vampire monkey armed with a syringe, but Faye arrives and drives it off. And she takes the Doctor and Sabine to the volcano's extinct caldera, where they find a secret laboratory constructed by Varney and the late pilot Lisette. Almost like, what's the James Bond movie Inside the Volcano?
Oh, is it You Only Live Twice?
Yes, yep. And British intelligence has been aware for some time that Varney's been developing biological weapons for the Nazis. And Faye was sent in undercover to find out what's been happening to the hundreds of other people Lisette has secretly transported to the island over the years. And the Doctor finds vials full of blood taken from Varney's former guests and theorizes that Lisette was killed because Varney's plan is now near completion. He also discovers too late that the champagne was spiked with a chemical agent and Sabine is already beginning to transform.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing Izzy didn't drink the champagne.
Yeah. It's a good thing that Izzy noted how young she was and therefore didn't drink any alcohol. Meanwhile, Marwood and Izzy find that Canon Pincock has been killed by a monkey. I hope you're keeping up with this, listener, because there is a lot going on. And like this is only 4 stories or 4 issues of a comic, and each issue is about 8 pages long. So it is at breakneck speed. And Marwood, realizing that Izzy is innocent, kills the monkey. However, Marwood unfortunately starts to turn into a vampire himself, and Varney sets his monkeys on Marwood, draining all of the blood out of Marwood's body. The Doctor and Faye arrive, but they too have fallen victim to the infection, and Sabine has died after stumbling into one of the biological weapons that Varney has developed. So Varney takes them back to the caldera, where he reveals that a Kirkabite lives in the lake, and this is a living alien spaceship that feeds on blood. But as the blood of the human race is unsuitable for its needs, it's been trapped on Earth for centuries. It's just this is such an ideas fest, isn't it? And ever since the pirate ancestor of Varney had stumbled across the Kirkabite, he and his descendants have been helping it. And now they have developed a serum which can transform human blood into the fuel that the ship requires. And Varney has been selling biological weapons to both the Nazis and the Americans on the down low. And once the Kirkabite is free, his plan is that Varney will rule the world. So Varney takes his place as the ship's pilot and prepares to drain the Doctor, Faye and Izzy dry. But the ship starts feeding on the Doctor initially, and the Doctor injects himself with one of Varney's bioweapons. And so the bioweapon spreads through the Doctor's blood, and then it gets into the Kirkabite's engines, causing the ship to explode. And the death of the ship cures the Doctor and Faye of their infection, rather handily. But Varney's sort of toxin, this bioweapon, is still killing the Doctor. And so Faye and Izzy must take him back to the TARDIS and pilot it to Gallifrey to seek help. Yeah, because we've seen the Seal of Rassilon recently. I'm sure it'll be fine. So Faye has become a companion of sorts.
Which I wasn't expecting that at all.
No.
That they have 2 women companions, and we kind of alluded to Izzy's sexuality earlier, but
yes,
Faye is very much a lesbian, I would say.
Yes,
and kind of hits on Izzy.
Yes,
sort of a little bit.
Yes, and Izzy does seem to be kind of like taken by the attention.
Yeah. And I wasn't expecting. We mentioned like vampire monkeys. I almost saw them as more like werewolf monkeys. With the blood infection, but. It was great to see a reference to the bow ships and the great vampires, and the cubbyhole and spare key above the P get a reference. And this is the story where the reference for Izzy changes to Kira from this life. So Tooth and Claw, the title of which is used in an RTD episode as well.
Yes. You know, a second companion appearing sort of possibly out of nowhere is kind of what happens with Captain Jack, if you haven't been following all of the pre-publicity. Yeah, it's...
Lots of allusions to the Eccleston season.
Right. The next story is a 4-part story called The Final Chapter, which is written by Alan Barnes with pencils by Martin Geraghty and inks by Robin Smith. Yeah, let's see what happens now.
So Faye decides to use the TARDIS manual to take the Doctor to Gallifrey, which, by the way, I did like that Faye was like reading through the TARDIS manual, because I'm one of those people that, like, when they get a video game, will read the instruction manual.
yeah.
From beginning to end. So I appreciated that little detail about her character.
Yeah.
So she's manages to pilot the craft to Gallifrey, where the Doctor's mind is placed in the Matrix for safekeeping, while his life stream is purged of the toxins in his system. And while the Doctor rests, you have this character named Overseer Luther, who is the eyes and ears of the capital. And he contacts Castellan Tenyon to warn her that Xanti approached by the Doctor. And Xanti is an academy dropout and is convinced that he's being stalked by a secret society called the Elysians, and only the Doctor can save him. But when he arrives, the Elysians teleport in and then try to kill the Doctor, so they're not a figment of his imagination.
Yeah.
And then the Matrix agent Shade, whom we, I think, first encountered in Tides of Time, arrives and guns down one of the Elysians, but the others end up capturing Xanti, referring to him as the Template.
Yeah.
And they also take Izzy as a hostage while they make their escape.
Yeah. And Shade, in case you don't know what Shade looks like, so Shade, I would just say, looks like a kind of almost like a commando version of Mysterio, the Spider-Man villain.
Also all in black, kind of like Black Manta, but with a more spherical shaped head.
Yeah, so basically, sphere for a head. Within the Matrix, the Doctor confronts Rassilon about the box that has been given to the Threshold, because it's got the guy's seal on it, and learns what it contained. Rassilon then warns the Doctor that the galaxy's high evolutionaries, who are a thing from Doctor Who Weekly, I think possibly created by Alan Moore.
Yeah, from a 4D war.
Yeah, so the high evolutionaries have all experienced visions of a militant Gallifrey that rules all time and space, and sends the Doctor's mind back to his healed body to face the threat. And the captive Elysian turns out to be a clone of Xanti. This is getting a bit complicated, isn't it? And Luther asks the Doctor to help him investigate. And perhaps Xanti's father, Uriel, who had committed himself to an asylum shortly after his son's birth, might know something useful. Or maybe not, who knows? And the Doctor discovers that his old enemy, Tubal Cain, is now the Director of Calm. And Cain, apparently reluctantly, allows him to commune with Uriel's sleeping mind. I'm saying Uriel. Might probably pronounce it Uriel. I don't know. My mum's called Muriel, so I'm just kind of saying Uriel.
Yeah, that's how I was pronouncing it, yeah.
And when it seems that the Doctor cannot escape from Uriel's madness, Faye follows him in. And on Luther's order, Cain severs the connection to their bodies, trapping them both in Uriel's mind.
And Tubal Cain is from Tides of Time as well.
Yes, yeah.
In all of these stories, there's lots of references to previous comics continuity.
Though I don't think it's necessarily kind of like getting in the way. I think it's just there as extra seasoning, I would say. But that's something that we can discuss later.
And Uriel saves both the Doctor and Faye from the demons of his guilt, which took the form of Xanti and the Elysians.
Yeah.
And Uriel explains that he and Luther were members of a secret society called the Final Chapter, which planned to overturn Rassilon's principle of non-interference. And an army of clones was to be grown from Uriel's biodata and used to seize control of Gallifrey. But when Uriel saw the face of his first child, Xanti, his military ambitions evaporated, and he then enlisted Xanti in a chapter house and fled to the Quantum of Solace to hide from his guilt. which is kind of that asylum that was mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
And also a James Bond book.
Yes,
movie.
yes.
And Uriel helps Faye and the Doctor to escape from his madness, and Faye knocks out Kane and helps the Doctor to investigate Luther's background. And it turns out Luther himself built most of the current capital over the remains of old Gallifrey. And a little spot on to have the villain named Luther.
Yes.
But it's spelt differently, at least from the DC Comics character.
Yes. But hey ho. So the Doctor and Faye take the TARDIS to Luther's watchtower to confront him, only to find out they're too late. So Xanthi, the Academy dropout from earlier, is a living link to the Eye of Harmony, and Luther has placed him in the heart of the watchtower, which is a TARDIS that he intends to pilot back to the start of the Time Lord's history.
And not the Justice League satellite.
No.
Another DC reference.
Yes. So the watchtower, this TARDIS, will materialise around the old Gallifrey and replace it with a new world run by a kind of like a military cabal. And Luther will rule the universe. As the watchtower goes back to the early days of Gallifrey, Xanthi, who can see the future, tells Izzy not to be sad and uses the telepathic link with his clones to turn them against Luther. And as the Elysians turn on Luther, the Doctor opens up the doors of the watchtower. But as Luther is sucked into the time vortex, Luther throws his trident through Xanthi's chest, killing Xanthi. And without a living time brain at its core, the watchtower cannot return to the present because we're stuck in the early past of Gallifrey. And the Doctor realises that he'll have to take Xanthi's place. Shade then arrives to pass on the Matrix Lord's thanks for the Doctor's sacrifice. The Doctor asks Shade for a favour.
And moments later, the Doctor returns to the TARDIS, sets the coordinates, and then distracts Izzy and Faye. And when they next turn around, they see the Doctor on the scanner screen, telling them that he'll see them in the present. He then connects himself to the watchtower and pilots it back to present-day Gallifrey. But the stress of the journey is too much, and Izzy and Faye emerge from the TARDIS to see the traumatically injured Doctor begin to regenerate into his 9th incarnation.
And that's where the final chapter ends.
And that 9th incarnation is not Eccleston. It's not Richard E. Grant.
No.
It's not...
It's not Rowan Atkinson.
No.
No.
It's Nicholas Briggs.
Yes. Yes.
And I think I'm going to refer to him as the Nick Briggs Doctor.
Yeah.
So yeah, what did you make of the final chapter?
I must say, I did find myself skimming little bits of it because there is a lot of talking and a lot of lore.
Alan Barnes in the commentary refers to this one as a bit of a dog's breakfast because it's a lot of things kind of mixed together. And
yeah,
maybe it doesn't all solidify or gel in the way that he wanted it to.
But it's setting stuff up, and I remember my absolute shock at the regeneration. And rather wonderfully, in the editorial column of Doctor Who magazine, that issue, the final sentence is, "You're not going to believe the comic strip." I remember at the time the online forums just going berserk about this, because some people saying how dare they, and also saying some folks saying that the BBC have clearly told Marvel that they're going to be taking away the license and that they don't want to do Doctor Who anymore, and so therefore they're going to go through a regeneration a year, and so that it will then all be wrapped up by the year 2000, and then they'll say the Doctor Who's dead.
Oh, fan speculation.
Yes.
Never change.
Yeah, never change. But also, fan speculation always being, it's going to die. People have made decisions they haven't told us yet.
For me, I knew that the 8th Doctor regenerated into the Nick Briggs incarnation at some point.
Yes.
But I didn't realize it happened in this collection.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I thought visually it was really well done.
Yes.
I did like his first line was about murdering a cup of tea because it kind of makes you a little unsettled in almost like a 6th Doctor way.
Yes. Yeah, it gives you a little bit of a flavour. You're thinking, what's he going to be like? What? Yeah, the fact that he looks like a version of the Doctor that had appeared in an earlier Doctor Who magazine comic. In fact, not even a Doctor Who magazine comic, a Marvel comic featuring the Doctor in, I think, The Incredible Hulk Presents. So very long-term readers would have recognised that Doctor because in 1989 there was a comic strip that briefly featured him.
As like a future incarnation.
Yeah, or a possible future incarnation. I think that one, he might have been revealed to have not been the Doctor after all or something.
It's interesting, too, to see kind of like how the Gallifrey skyline is depicted here. We don't have glass globes necessarily, but otherwise pretty accurate when it comes to like how Gallifreyan architecture's depicted in the new series.
Yeah.
And I also liked the idea of Gallifrey turning into like a giant TARDIS.
Yeah.
And it's not too different from how it materializes near Earth in the End of Time either.
Yeah.
You know, the part where they go back to day one or whatever of Rassilon and seeing all the other people gathered, it did make me pause and think like, okay, which one of these is the other? And then, you know, oh, she must be Teteyun.
Yes,
and all that.
yes. So,
Well,
I still can't quite believe that they went ahead and did that, and it's like, what, nearly 30 years on.
and Shade showing back up also really surprised me, but I guess that
Yeah.
makes sense because he's kind of is an agent of Rassilon.
Yes, yeah.
So that brings us to a 5-part story called Wormwood.
Yeah.
And now the writer is Scott Gray instead of Alan Barnes.
Yeah.
And pencils by Martin Geraghty.
Yeah.
And I think part of the reason why Alan stepped back and I think Scott Gray originally came up with The Threshold. So this story, which kind of fleshes out their backstory quite a bit, as we'll see, that's, I think, probably why we have Scott stepping in
Yes.
in the writing credit seat.
But also having to be given like an enormous cliffhanger to deal with. In fact, it's good that RTD never did like a shock regeneration as a cliffhanger. That never happened, did it?
Oh, so many little things. I think, have their kernels of inspiration here. So.
Yes, yeah. So but I've forgotten who's reading. I'm just so
I
shocked.
think you're up.
I think I'm up. Okay, fine, fair enough. Yep. Okay, so because Faye and Izzy, like the reader, is trying to come to terms with what's happened to the Doctor.
And he's gone through a bit of a costume change, so he's taken off his cravat and now has a kind of a polka dot bow tie.
Yes, because bow ties are cool.
And looks very similar to how the 11th Doctor dresses.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, too, that his bow tie pattern is kind of the same pattern used for the Threshold, but inverted.
And also he has a toothbrush, doesn't he? Yeah, instead of like a stick of celery. So the TARDIS is caught in an energy storm and it destroys another ship before their eyes. So Faye then manages to reprogram the console to take them to Wormwood, a village in the American Midwest, circa 1880, or so it appears, until they realise that they're in fact on Earth's moon, which is the home of the Threshold.
And I really like the idea of like having a Western town on the moon.
Yes.
Like just the imagery of that is really cool. So much so that when it comes to like pilfering the comic strip for ideas, I feel like the show should use that properly.
Yes, yeah.
You get that a little bit with like Martha's Hospital on the moon.
Yeah.
A Western town on the moon would be really cool.
Yeah, we encounter the Threshold's leader, Abraham White, but even he is surprised when the TARDIS seems to dematerialise by itself before he can examine it. So he's met the TARDIS crew. He kind of like gets over the shock and sends Izzy and Faye into the heart of American Midwest village called Wormwood, where we encounter the Threshold agent Chastity again.
Some 20 years later or so from when we last saw her.
Yeah, and she tells Faye that the Threshold captured her after she first met the Doctor and implanted a transmitter in her head so they could use her as a spy if she ever met the Doctor again. So that's what's happened to Faye. And so Faye, furious by this, overpowers Chastity and her guards. And she and Izzy take their Threshold rings. But while Izzy concentrates on finding the Doctor, the vengeful Faye concentrates on finding White, because she doesn't like the idea of being used by the Threshold. So, yeah, lots of twists and reveals.
And according to Abraham White, the Threshold is finally ready to step out of the shadows after having been around for around 3,000 years. Yeah. But before he can explain, Faye arrives and attacks him. But White defends himself by transforming into a shadow creature called the Pariah, and Faye has no choice but to back down.
Yeah, like the Pariah's huge, isn't it?
Yeah, and it is also a woman, and so you have both the Pariah and White kind of sharing the same body, which is a Buffy Season 5 villain reference.
But that hadn't happened yet.
It hadn't, no.
No.
But the pariah then transforms back into White, who then explains that, well, a young man in 19th century Arkansas, he had stumbled across the dying pariah, a super weapon that had been expelled from Gallifrey and crash-landed on Earth after it had tried to overthrow Rassilon. And White bonded with the pariah, giving her a new body with which to heal herself while she plotted her revenge. And inspired by Henry Ford's car assembly line,
Yeah.
because once he merges with pariah, he slows down, and that's why he's 3,000 years old now.
Yeah.
White has the pariah reproduce herself by fission and then sets the mini-spheres in a dimensional void, which is where you get kind of the polka dot pattern from the threshold.
Yeah, because all of the threshold, when you realise who they are, their faces are made of polka dots. They look like comics from the early 80s and backwards.
Zoomed in, where you only have the 4 colors to print from.
Yeah.
And then Abraham White recruited employees who weren't afraid of the power he offered them, and he transformed them into living conduits for the spheres. And then those people then became threshold agents.
Yeah. So that's a lot of stuff. Though I always kind of think of the threshold as being DWM's faction paradox kind of thing, being these big lurking villains that menace the Eighth Doctor. So Izzy concentrates on reaching the Doctor, but instead finds herself right in the heart of Wormwood, where a young new threshold agent called Gracie Witherspoon is heading for the Eye of Disharmony. Gracie spots Izzy following her and captures her just as the Eye of Disharmony is activated, which transforms every quantum particle in the vacuum of space into an entropy hole that therefore turns space into a minefield, killing every living being outside of a planetary atmosphere.
Yeah, so anyone in space who isn't on a planet is toast.
Yes. Is that just around the moon, or is it kind of like...
No, that's all throughout space.
All throughout space,
so,
okay, yeah.
So it very much got almost
A
like
flux.
a flux. And it's represented in the comic by a lot of Kirby crackle, too.
Yeah.
We see some Shalonians get destroyed and...
Oh, yes, we do, don't we? Yeah. So Abraham White, the Threshold's leader, takes the appalled Doctor, so the Nick Briggs Doctor, to his transmission centre, where he intends to send out a message to the entire universe, which is real master from Locopolis energy. But first, though, he must tear the Time Lord's gift of universal translation out of the Doctor's brain, because this is the prize that they should have earned for wiping out the Daleks, but it was lost when Chastity accidentally dropped the box into the Dalek hive. However, the Doctor points out that his newly regenerated brain is still unstable, so he might have a fighting hand, but not a talking brain. Since Chastity looked into the box before dropping it, she has the gift which Abraham White needs. White, therefore, tears out the protesting Chastity's mind instead, and then broadcasts a public service announcement to the entire universe. Since travel in space is now impossible because of all of these minds that they've set, only the Threshold can move between planets, and they now intend to charge for their services. Oh dear, this is good fun.
There's a great line that the Nick Briggs Doctor says to Chastity, the nun, about still being full of bad habits. Was great.
Yeah.
So Gracie arrives with her prisoner, but then Pariah realizes that Gracie is an imposter, and Gracie is thus forced to reveal that she is, in fact, the Eighth Doctor, disguised by a personal chameleon circuit. And it's great that he picked Gracie, kind of like, Grace Holloway, for his alias name.
Yes.
And the Ninth Doctor is likewise revealed to be a disguised Shade.
Yes.
White then transforms back into Pariah, who attacks Shade, and Shade's psychic bullets have no effect without the will of the Time Lord Masters behind them, but he still attempts to hold off the Pariah, while the Doctor takes Faye and Izzy back to the TARDIS. And there he shows Faye that the TARDIS manual, which she used to pilot the ship to Gallifrey, is written in an alien script, so ancient Gallifreyan.
Yeah.
And when she told him that she had done that, he realized it must have been translated for her by an implant in her brain, thus revealing kind of her double agent status.
Yeah.
And then he and Shade then staged the regeneration deception, and Shade kept the Threshold distracted while the real Doctor explored Wormwood disguised as Gracie.
Yeah.
And it turns out the regeneration fake-out was originally planned as early as 1994.
Yes.
For the Seventh Doctor and Ace.
Yes.
But comes to fruition here.
And also, one of the reasons why they were wanting to do it was to see whether the GWM readership would be happy with an alternative, well, with a different Doctor, like a comic-only Doctor.
And for me, like, I knew this wasn't a permanent regeneration, so it lost a little bit of its shock value. But I would imagine that for those 6 or 7 months when the comic was coming out, this would have been a very big deal.
Yeah, it was huge. I mean, for me, it was like at this time, whenever I was picking up Doctor Who magazine, the very first thing I did was finding where the comic was and just reading it, because I needed to know what happened, because like all bets were off.
And I was thinking that the Nick Briggs Doctor storyline went on for like 3 or 4 stories, so I was surprised that it was all resolved within a single story. I thought he stuck around a bit longer, but still, with these coming out month by month, you've got that timeline, I guess.
Yeah. So the Pariah arrives and mortally injures Shade right in front of the TARDIS crew and steals the TARDIS. Whilst Faye tends to the dying Shade, the Doctor sends Izzy into the control centre with a baseball bat, which he says a friend of his used to have.
And at first I was thinking this was a continuity error because, Ace has her bat in Power of the Doctor, but then I realized, nope, she's dead in this timeline.
Yes, yeah.
So,
yeah. And also, she may well have had multiple ones. And sets off to confront White and the Pariah. To Abraham White's horror, the Pariah uses the TARDIS to drain all energy from the threshold grid, killing all of their people and overloading the Eye of Disharmony. And the Pariah reveals that she intends to fulfill her destiny as the ultimate weapon by destroying everything in the universe. But when Abraham White realises this, he deliberately separates himself from her, knowing they've been bonded for so long that neither can survive for long without the other. Before the dying Pariah can kill the Doctor, Faye arrives, having bonded with Shade to provide him with the willpower that he lacks to repair himself. So this new entity is called Fade, F-E-Y-T-E. And so the Faye-Shade hybrid shoots the Pariah with psychic bullets, now armed with Faye's willpower, whilst Izzy smashes the control centre to bits. And the Doctor, Faye and Izzy retreat as the control short-circuits and destroys the moon. And when the Eye of Disharmony is destroyed, space returns to normal and the universe is saved. And Faye departs to come to terms with her new status of also being Shade. And the Doctor and Izzy set off for new adventures. And thus ends Wormwood.
Yeah.
And season 1 of the Doctor Who comic.
And we'll jump back and do those other 2 stories in a moment. But this I thought was a pretty satisfying conclusion to everything that was laid out, considering how many different balls were in the air that they had to juggle.
Yeah.
And I liked the Eye of Disharmony. That was a fun idea and some good wordplay. One thing I wish would have happened was when the Doctor kind of mentions at the end that he's going off to a restaurant on a planet. I wish the restaurant would have been located on a spaceship or a space station. And not the surface of a planet, just to make it clear that all the spaceships in flight also got restored when space was returned back to normal.
Yeah.
And when the moon blew up, I was thinking about Luna University, and the moon must have sizable colonies on it, but presumably the whole solar system was evacuated due to the solar flare dangers and not just the surface of the Earth, because that doesn't get restored. I guess that dragon egg was destroyed.
Yes, yeah.
What'd you make of this one?
I've lapped this up with a spoon. This was great fun. I'd forgotten how the Eighth Doctor got himself back in. I knew it happened in this story. I was thinking that Shade, the Doctor was disguised as Shade or something like that. And so I was like, oh, the Doctor's the Threshold. Right, okay, fine. Yeah, it was great. It was just such a wonderful load of ideas. And it's not dull.
Oh yeah. If anything, it's the opposite of with the Threshold backstory is interesting too. That at its heart, it was just a frontier snake oil salesman. That was kind of behind it all. And it's also interesting that the Threshold don't time travel by choice to avoid scrutiny from Gallifrey.
Yes.
So kind of like the prohibition the people have.
Yeah.
But here it's self-imposed and not through a treaty.
Yeah. I'm also slightly sad that we never encountered the Threshold again.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I mean, they seem to have kind of a definitive end here.
They do. But also, we could encounter alternative. I mean, they were all across time and space where they were picking up the Doctor's companions.
And Izzy and Fade sort of share a kiss at the end.
Yeah.
Fade gives her a kiss on the forehead.
Yeah.
And I thought it was interesting, too, that when Izzy mentions when she's trying to psych herself up for a battle and stuff and to start going wild with the baseball bat, she chants to herself a little mantra of all the female superheroes she takes inspiration from, including Ripley from Alien and Linda Carter as Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
I was a little disappointed that Lucy Lawless and Xena weren't mentioned in the same breath, but maybe it took a few years for that show to make its way over to the UK.
Yeah, I think that was shown on Channel 5 over here, which I don't think has quite started airing yet. So, yeah, I think it's quite possible that she wouldn't know.
Then we jump back to A Life of Matter and Death.
Yes.
Which was in issue 250.
Yeah.
And I think the reason they have a couple of little one-off adventures at the end is just kind of as like a denouement or an epilogue to kind of show that the Doctor and Izzy are off traveling again.
Yeah.
I think it would have worked just as well to keep it in the same order as it was published in DWM, but oh well. So this one, we're back to Alan Barnes with Sean Longcraft doing the art with an assist from Martin Geraghty. And this one, the TARDIS explodes and the Doctor and Izzy awaken on a stairway to heaven. And at the top of the stairway, they face judgment in a celestial arena. And the Doctor's old enemies, General Ironicus, Josiah Dogbolter, and Beep the Meep, are in hand to provide literally damning testimony. But just as the monstrous judges, who are tentacle creatures that look very much like the aliens on The Simpsons, just as they're about to sentence the Doctor and Izzy, a gray lady appears, kind of cloaked, rescues them from the arena and reveals the truth. They're not the real Doctor and Izzy, but simulations in the TARDIS memory banks. And the TARDIS has been attacked by a vortex parasite. And so almost like is it The Man Who Has Everything?
Yeah.
That story?
Yeah.
And the real Doctor and Izzy are lying near death in the console room. And the simulated Doctor and Izzy confront the parasite in the TARDIS datascape. And when the creature summons up more images of the Doctor's enemies from the memory banks, the Doctor summons up images of his old friends, such as the Free Fall Warriors, Sharon from Black Castle, and Sir Justin of TARDIS.
Yes, that knight who died. Yes, yeah.
And the battle is joined, and the Doctor's friends beat a path through to the monster, which the Doctor impales with Sir Justin's blade. And the parasite dies and falls away from the TARDIS as the real Doctor and Izzy recover, unaware that, for once, they've shared the TARDIS's adventure rather than the other way around.
Yeah. I mean, it's a nice story to kind of like to celebrate Doctor Who Magazine's 250th issue.
We even get a reference, the Time Witch is in there too.
Yeah, yeah.
I wonder what Sutek felt about this, though, with another creature latching onto the TARDIS.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I know there's that book coming up about, or it's already been published, I think, possibly, of like the diary of the TARDIS from the TARDIS's point of view. I would love to hear of events from Sutek's point of view.
And I assume the Grey Lady is like the TARDIS herself.
Yes, I assume so. Yeah, good fun. What did you make of it?
I thought it was fun.
Yeah.
At this point, I was kind of glad that they moved this further back in the collection, because the first opening stories with the Eighth Doctor were also very comics centric, with full of cameos and references, so that spaces it out a bit more and also gives the impression that the TARDIS knows Izzy more, I guess, although she's kind of non-linear anyway. It was good.
There could be stories between Endgame and The Keep.
Yeah, that's true. There could be other adventures there too. Yeah, because in the original placement, she only had 2 stories with the Doctor at this point. But yeah, there could be unseen adventures.
Yeah.
And then it ends with a reference to Tercerus, which of course was famously in The Curse of Fatal Death, but was first mentioned in The Deadly Assassin.
Yeah, and The Curse of Fatal Death had not aired at this point.
That's true. Yeah, this would be before.
Yeah, so I do wonder whether Stephen Moffat was reading the comics.
The note about the TARDIS had shared all of the Doctor's adventures, and sometimes he shares in hers.
Yes.
Alan Barnes would take that idea forward when he and Gary Russell were putting together the 40th anniversary Audio Zagreus, having, like the jealous, betrayed TARDIS gaining corporeal form there.
Yeah.
So that is A Life of Matter and Death.
Yeah, good fun. And now we go to, I think, the last one in this collection. By Hook or by Crook, which is written by Scott Gray, and we have a guest artist, Adrian Salmon, who, how do we describe Adrian's work? I think of him as the Norm Bergfoyle of Doctor Who.
Kind of like a very noir, kind of look and kind of stylized. He did a bunch of the Benny covers throughout most of the 2000s.
Quite angular.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And did like was it the Croton the Cyberman
Yes.
backup strip?
Yes, yeah. Yeah, so his art is a little bit Marmite, to use a British expression, and you'll either love it or hate it. Certainly, I am happy to have it in small doses. I don't think I would necessarily want to read an entire collection with the art, but that's my personal taste. But so the Doctor takes Izzy to the cosmopolitan city-state of Torcanom, but she's too busy reading a book about its history to go exploring with him. After a brief argument, the Doctor sets off on his own and encounters a jam shop, only to find that the merchant has been killed by a madman with a hook for a hand. Yeah, okay. He tries to remove the madman's hook, but the killer knocks him out and flees. And when the Doctor wakes, he finds himself surrounded by police, lying next to a dead body with a murder weapon in his hand. He's charged not only for this murder, but for 6 similar crimes. And I think Izzy is unsurprised to discover this, because she goes, oh, of course you got yourself into trouble.
Mm.
And by the time Izzy tracks him down, he's already been sentenced to death. And she's arrested herself when she tries to free him.
By baking a sonic screwdriver in a cake.
Yeah.
So she's sentenced to like a year in jail, and he's, going to be executed.
Yeah. And Izzy realises what day it is and uses her one phone call to send an anonymous tip to the police. And the police thus catch the real killer and release the Doctor and Izzy. And as they depart, Izzy explains that she'd read the story of this case in her history book that she'd been reading at the start. So it's all a bit timey-wimey, but it's also somewhat Deus Ex Machina. But what did you make of By Hook, by Crook?
I thought it was a fun little story to end with.
Yeah.
It was fine. It was interesting that Adrian Salmon had to rework the mass murderer character quite a bit because it was too horrific, what he had originally come up with. And the commentary reveals that this story was referred to as Silence of the Jams. And it was originally going to be a Western, but was moved to a futuristic city.
Yeah, because they were going to be using Western setting later.
Yep, so they would use that in Wormwood. And also because the Doctor should easily be able to escape like a 19th century jail.
Yeah.
Yeah, what would you think of this one?
Yeah, it's fine, I think. I mean, it's probably... For me, I would say it's the least successful of the stories. But for me, it works well, actually, in its original setting between Fire and Brimstone and Tooth and Claw as a kind of like as a non-story arc episode.
Mm-hmm.
I also wonder whether it was just here to kind of give Martin Geraghty a time to just catch up. Maybe. Obviously, in the TV series, we every now and again have Doctor Light or Companion Light stories. This is an Artist Light story, I think. Yeah.
And I do like that Izzy is, kind of doing her homework and reading the guidebook first, and ties into like Faye reading the manual too. And
you do get a strong sense of Izzy's character, and it's interesting because in the novels at roughly this time, you've got Sam, and Izzy feels more like a character than Sam does. To me at least, and we don't really have much insight into kind of like Izzy's head directly because obviously it's a comic, but I feel that I could talk more to you about who Izzy is than I ever really could about Sam.
And I was kind of wondering about that too, because when I was reading this, I was wondering if is there much that really differentiates Izzy from Sam? And maybe I haven't read enough novels with Sam, but superficially, I mean, they're both young women from the same time period. They both have short hair.
Yeah,
I guess one in my mind is more of a geek, and one is more of like an environmental activist.
Yes, I would say but also I think Izzy seems to be more excited by things, and I just have more fun reading Izzy. But I think it might be because I get the references that Izzy's making.
So what do you think about the collection overall?
I really enjoyed it, and I'm glad I really enjoyed it. Yeah, it was really good fun. There's an editorial right at the end of Wormwood. So the Doctor Who magazine editorial is entirely addressing the comic strip. And it points out that they never referred to the Nick Briggs Doctor as the Doctor. So whenever they were talking about kind of like next time or anything, it was always the TARDIS crew.
Huh.
So they said, we never lied to you. We never said it was the Doctor.
Very clever.
Yes, yeah. And they said, look, we're going to keep on doing bold experiments and everything. So, just stick with us. You ain't seen anything yet. And certainly, yeah, the next big arc, The Fallen, goes to places as well. But that is another story for another time. What did you make of this collection?
I really enjoyed it as well.
Yeah.
I really liked Izzy. At first, she seemed like a bit of a Mary Sue type character in that she's like a geek like all of us.
Yeah.
So her reactions to different situations felt genuine, authentic, and, similar. Also would have been, similar ages based on when the stories are set. In a way, she reminds me a little bit of Bill Potts.
Yeah.
Because not only is Bill a lesbian, but at the end of the pilot, she recognizes that the doctor might be trying to mind wipe her because she's seen various sci-fi movies before. And I did appreciate, like, she was excited to meet the Daleks because she hadn't met robot monsters before. And Faye, I didn't realize at first that, she was kind of an accidental companion, but I did like her character, and I'm excited to see what they do with her as Fade if she ever comes back.
She may do.
And I liked that we tied up some loose ends with the Threshold and all of that. And I think what impressed me most about this collection was that there's just a lot of variety to the types of genres of story. You've got stuff set in the future and in the past. You've got Daleks, you've got Time Lords, you've got the surreal comic style stuff with the Toymaker and the stuff in the Matrix.
Yeah.
You've got the Western setting. Just a really good variety.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to give this collection an 8 out of 10.
Cool.
I really enjoyed it. And I did feel a lot of the stories of the collection kind of traded on nostalgia a bit, with a lot of callbacks to previous stuff.
Yeah.
But to your point, it was more like extra seasoning as opposed to...
Yeah.
There were a couple times where I did feel like it came up to that line of like over-egging the pudding in terms of being too self-referential and navel-gazing, but that didn't detract from the stories overall for me. So yeah, really solid collection. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm going to give it a 9. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think one of the reasons why I'm probably not giving it a 10 is just, I think that Gallifreyan story, well, Alan Barnes says himself in the collection that it's a bit of a mess. I remember being utterly thrilled by it, and I was just delighted that it held up. If this was a TV series, I mean, this would be a fantastic first season. And also as well, it's showing folks how you could do a Doctor Who season in an era of Buffy. Even though I don't think Buffy had started airing in the UK by this stage. But I mean, it was brilliant. It was intricately plotted. So good.
And so inspirational for when Doctor Who did eventually return.
Yeah. I mean, we don't know that for a fact. However,
there's a lot of parallels there.
There's a lot of stuff here that we see later. Yeah. I just thought this was great. But it was interesting. I was reading through some of the letters columns. There were some people who hated it. Some of the letters were really giving it a kicking. Whereas there were other folks who were praising it, but somebody sort of said that they thought that Martin Geraghty's art was unprofessional.
What?
Yeah, I know.
I didn't get that at all.
Yeah, I thought, really? And it was boring and dull. I thought, okay. I don't think I could call this boring. I mean, if anything, they're chucking lots of things at the wall, but yeah.
And in the commentary too, it revealed like some of the stuff they kind of set up for the future, but didn't know what would be in it, like the box with the seal of Rassilon.
Oh, okay.
They had no idea the TARDIS translation matrix was in there. That was something they came up with later, but they kind of built that stuff in, knowing that they would use it at some point.
Yeah.
If they at least didn't know how yet.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't feel like that. It feels all carefully done, but it just, you just really went away really having an understanding of like the characters of Faye and the Doctor and Izzy, which I think is a hell of an achievement, given that only one of those, is a non-comics character, and that one really has been on telly for 60 minutes?
Or even 30 minutes, yeah.
Yeah, because like when the comic starts, we don't have Big Finish. In fact, one of the Doctor Who magazines has a little article in Gallifrey Guardian talking about how there's going to be a new series of audio adventures featuring Benny, played by Survival's Lisa. I don't think they actually, in the headline, they don't even give Lisa's surname, I don't think. They don't say Bow.
And I don't think they even had the BBC Books range kicking off at this point yet either.
No, not when the comic strip starts. No, I mean, this was the future of Doctor Who. And wow, they just seem to have an attitude of, okay, we don't know which is going to be the continuity. We know it's not going to be back on telly just yet. Let's just put a giant stake in the ground. And they achieve it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so brave, because like some of these choices, they've given themselves carte blanche that let's just do anything, and it is such fun.
Yeah.
Cool.
Right, well that is Endgame.
Yes, that's Endgame. Right. So, shall we hear what folks have been saying on various bits of their social media?
Let's do that. All right. It doesn't look like we have any new emails for this month.
Oh, okay. We don't have anything on Facebook either.
Oh, nor on Twitter.
Oh, okay.
The remnants of that. We do have a couple of nice notes on Blue Sky, so I'll get to those.
Oh, okay. I like Blue Sky.
I do too.
Yes. It's less crazy there.
So do find us over there. We've heard from Keith Say,
yes,
who says he enjoyed our podcast about pack animals, which he had never read.
Right.
Although now he doesn't think he'll bother.
Yeah, I think that might be my influence, but yeah, sorry about that.
We've also heard from Tom Hibbert, who says that it feels so good to find you guys again, especially when moving to Blue Sky.
Oh.
So thank you very much, Tom. We're glad you found us too, and welcome all of our new followers on that platform.
Yes, because I very, very seldom go on to the other one. Yeah,
so thank you. And folks, if you want to drop us a line and maybe let us know how you felt when these comics were first coming out in DWM, you can get a hold of us by emailing us at andwbcpodcast@gmail.com, or, of course, through any of our social media channels.
Yeah, cool. Okay.
So, Chris, I think this brings us to what we're going to be reading for January.
Yes!
A new year, new month.
Yeah, new year, new month. So I thought that we should go for an author who we've not done much. We've done the occasional novel, but not that much, and also quite some time ago. So we'll go and spend a bit of time with the Third Doctor. We're going to be going to a BBC Books book, a relatively early one. We are going to be encountering Last of the Gadarene by Mark Gatiss.
I haven't read that.
No, and I have checked and double checked, and that has not been done by the previous version of the show. So it's a unit adventure set between Speed of Flight and the Green Death.
Okay.
According to Wikipedia. So, yeah.
Well, we've read Speed of Flight, so that's good.
Yeah, it was re-released in 2013 for the 50th anniversary of the show. So hopefully it should be kind of easily available. It's good to have something that is a bit more available than this one, than Endgame, which is not available unless you want to spend 250 quid.
Excellent. Well, that is for January.
Yeah, for January. Let's start January off with Unit. Back to the Future.
Cool.
Yes.
Well, until next month, this has been Matt in Minnesota.
Chris in South London. Happy reading. Stay safe. And Merry Christmas to all of you at home.
Thank you for listening to the all-new adventures of the Doctor Who Book Club podcast. Special thanks to George C. Music for use of their song Doctor Who Theme Swing Jazz Version. You can follow us on Twitter at ANDWBC Podcast and like us on Facebook. Help other listeners to find us by leaving a rating or review on Apple Podcasts or your podcatcher of choice. You can contact the show by emailing your thoughts to andwbcpodcast@gmail.com. And until next month, happy reading.
There were two books I was toying between. I'm not going to say what the other one was because I might do that one later.